Do it by memory. You are listening to the Overwatch Rundown, a weekly podcast covering the latest in the esports scene of competitive Overwatch. Today is Sunday, July 15th, and we are covering the quarterfinals of the Overwatch League playoffs. Finally, Jax, playoffs. First set of playoffs done. We got that coming on today's show. We're going to try and keep it short because there's actually a lot to talk about, including a couple things off the top.
Keep it short. For those of you looking at the schedule, I actually put check marks for us to follow to try to keep to our time constraints.
We have a roadmap, Jax.
It's not going to happen. It's not. We lost our main clock guy. He is off installing an SSD on his computer that is taking him hours. So if he lost track of time installing an SSD and he's our clock guy, we're screwed.
So there's a lot we could talk. Like, honestly, we could do a whole podcast in just talking about our intro, Jax. There's so many things I could pick up. Even our precast, we got to talk a little about. And I'm just going to mention it briefly here because I said we were going to talk about this in the actual podcast itself. But I just want to touch on it briefly. It was talking about what's going on over the last day, I guess, with Effect. Because I know it's not related to the Overwatch League playoffs, but it's sort of unfortunate news coming out from over there with Effect clearly still having issues.
Yeah.
And it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch a player going through some troubles. It's hard to watch a player of the caliber that he is struggling and not getting the help he needs. And I think you mentioned to me that, like, and I have questions too. Like, how much is this fault on Dallas for not getting him help sooner? Is like the way I would put it. But how much is it on Dallas right now for not helping him through with what's? And I don't know. Like, how much more can they do right now? It's clear that this guy is in some serious difficulty.
I mean, even if we put him being a player aside, it's tough to see any person suffer like this, right? Because when some people in the community don't want to translate because of how he's bearing his soul here, right? And it's upsetting, because just because the circumstances that are here, and when you do finally get to read the translation here, and you just can't help but feel bad for the guy, and you always take me back to, I don't remember what episode it was or what game it was where
I think I think it was in the first stage even. If if you're going to bring up what I usually bring up, which is where he sat out in front of the crowd because he couldn't go back and face his teammates. Right.
I mean, he was, I think he was like upset with himself, upset with his aim, and so he just felt the need to continue, during that, however long halftime break is, just continue practicing, however he chose to go about it. And as you say, right then and there, Dallas, that should have been a major warning sign for them, and in that, you just pull him out and just bring him back to the group where he's got support instead of just, you look at the video shot of him being the only one out there on stage, and you think about his situation where he's at right now and what he's saying, where he's saying he has no help, right? And I was saying to you in the pregame that, or pre-show, that I don't know Korean culture, but going by what he's saying here, when he literally says that he has no help, then for Dallas, right? I look at Hastro, I look at Tasmo, the general manager. It's your off season, right? Literally get on a plane because you can afford it and go get this man some help. Like, sit him down and talk to him.
Yeah, and find somebody proper that can do that too.
When his only, and he I think he says it did help him, but when your only outlet is to talk to Twitch chat, you've got some serious issues, man. Thankfully, I can't even say thankfully because I didn't understand, but he limited this to his Korean streamers because he didn't want it being translated live and then have the Korean viewers and the American and English viewers going back and forth like that. So he just left it all in Korean. But Twitch chat. Everyone knows Twitch chat, and they know how bad it can be. And you can only imagine how the trolls was, even not even with a subject like this. You go look at the thread on the Reddit and you see all the downvoted posts because people are just terrible individuals. So I'm looking at Dallas and I'm saying he's most likely done as a player, unless until he is healed. But even if he's done, I feel like you have a responsibility, just as him still being in your employment. Just help him. Like literally, if he can't find it, go out there and find it for him. Go over there and help him. And it's just I'm almost afraid of what I'm gonna wake up one day or just reload Reddit. I'm afraid of what I'm gonna see here. It's and
Yeah, it is that
damn,
worrying. Jax, I think that's a good way to put it. We're gonna cleanly move on though to
yeah,
discuss some other things that we can off the start. While we're talking about personnel, I guess we can talk about another major thing. This time with Soul Dynasty, you had linked this, which
you're
is
right.
a number of the coaches being gone. So briefly, if you wanted to talk about that one.
Oh, I think one of the problems that you and I have had with Soul Dynasty through the season is the coaching, and we often wonder, they have three head coaches, and obviously it didn't work, right? You look at the results and say, well, those results kind of speak for themselves. You look at some of the strategy and substitutions and roster decisions that they make, and it just doesn't make sense. And so, from what we read today, is the Soul Dynasty let the contracts lapse for three of their head coaches. They promoted one person, I don't know who it is, to general manager, and then he will be tasked with finding a head coach for season two. Hopefully, sometime in the next month, because I think the signing period starts August 1st, right after the Overwatch season one grand final. So, they want to get the head coaching staff in general, locked down and prepare themselves for the season, the off season where you make your trades, you make your moves, because if you cannot be Soul Dynasty and not qualify for the playoff levels. Like, what a disaster that was for this organization to not qualify for any
Yeah,
stage playoffs and for the season one playoffs. Like,
again,
unimaginable, dude. But yeah,
it was definitely very upsetting for them, and I don't blame them for getting rid of most of their coaching staff, considering that, particularly with you look at their performance. Now, I wanted to segue that into another coaching thing, which came out of IO Stux, which was this whole post on Reddit this week about
yeah.
coaching and the path to pro and the problems that they're facing in the path to pro. Listen, I linked this in chat here in Twitch. There's no way for us to get into this here. It's
No,
basically a whole episode. It would be perfectly fitting for another In Blizzard We
we
Trust,
trust. Yeah.
Jax, because it hits everything. And I like, you can go through the points here, and it's almost like point for point something that we've brought up, but now we're
Yep.
watching somebody who's
I mean, we
actually.
saw it last week, or when we talked briefly about the Envision owner, right? And him having to just give up his contenders team because he just couldn't afford it, right? And that's just more of a money thing. But he also
Yeah.
talked about the lack of support that he got from Blizzard, and how the only ones who get the support from Blizzard are the academy teams.
Yeah.
And
And let's just go
yeah,
his bullet point list here on the Too Long Didn't Read is pretty much every point that we've talked about at
yeah,
different points. So low prize pools, strict sponsorship limitations, slow payouts, academy teams having distinct advantage, not a lot of advertisement for tier 2, no third party tournaments, some regions are screwed, having to compete against a lot of Koreans, shady shit going on behind the back,
pardon the language.
cronyism,
Yeah.
people take friends over talent, no replay system, patches are a mess, map pulls are a mess, ranked is a mess. Wow.
Some of
uh
that is not even just for contenders. You talk about map pool and patches are a mess. Hello, ranked is a mess. That's for everybody. That's for
that's
you and
for
I who
everybody,
play.
absolutely.
Anyone who plays. The same with no replay system. One of the things that actually bothered me is the second bullet point that you mentioned: strict sponsorship limitations.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I I have followed the guy who ran the Academy Gaming tournament, which was about the only consistent tier two, tier three tournament that there was for a year. Every was like every Monday night he would put on a tournament, and he finally got to the point where he had $100 donation from Haste, the corporation Haste, and he had Matcherino before then allowed $50 in the regular Matcherino stuff. Everybody remembers that, and he couldn't. He had to stop doing it when they came out with their most recent guidelines for tournaments. He was limited into what he could do for sponsorships, and so he couldn't even offer teams Lepelos the $150 prize pool per week that he normally
it's
did. It's like,
it's
really,
crazy.
$150 a week? that's split between 6 people and whatever coaches that the winners have? Come on, man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There is no pathway to pro here.
Liberals,
It's
let me ask you then. In Australia and South America, their prize pools are half of, say, North America and Korea. Half.
Yeah, and you, not only that, but then you have some regions in say like the Pacific region, which start to have more Korean teams this season as well.
That,
So now,
Siegel talked about that himself on his stream.
oh, just
You
get
know,
good, right?
it's
Just get good in the region. But that's not really the point. The point is the pathway to getting good needs support sometimes
yeah.
regionally, and that's a tricky thing to do if your region is not
I mean,
currently competitive, right? Like it.
let's take China, right? The biggest market. And if you're a Chinese fan of Overwatch, you can't be happy right now. You take a look at the Overwatch League, your only team went 0 for 40. And you say, okay, well, what about the tier 2 scene? Well, your best Chinese team, LGD, unable to win Contenders China because why? Lucky Future Zenith. Well, that's another Chinese team, isn't it? No, it's a team full of Koreans. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to hate on Korean players or
No,
anything.
I'm
I'm
not
I'm just
either. I'm
saying
just
is that for the Chinese region, right? How do you get it to grow, Lep? How do you continue that path to pro there? So when you have all these expansion teams, let's say you want to bring in a Beijing team, right? Where are the players gonna come from?
not only that. Let's go talk about where we are in North America. When you
Yeah.
like I suspect in the future will continue to grow the number, amount, or proportional representation of Korean players to North American players overall, particularly next year when Overwatch League is still being hosted in LA,
Yeah.
right? Because the
I,
majority of players are going to want to come over and still play with these people against them on ranked or through scrims or other things like that. And while you might say that that might improve um our abilities or our skill here in North America, I'm not sure if it actually will, so much as provide opportunities for some of the best players from other regions to come over here, try and chase some of the money that is here in some of our teams,
I mean,
in
the
our
current
contenders.
format
But
for Overwatch League is a problem. Like, I take you back to our previous conversation we had where I asked you, let's say season 2, you're the owners of the Shanghai Dragons. None of your games will be played in China. You will probably not send any of your players back to China during the 1 week off period, just for a meet and greet. If that is the case, do you need any Chinese players on your teams for season 2?
yeah, and I told
Not
you
not
no,
not really.
not right
No,
now.
you don't.
And
Okay.
this comes down to, while I like their concept of a regional
Yeah.
like regional behavior and saying like, oh, your town has a team and you should support it, opposed to say other real life sports which do have like regional events going on. I'm sorry, I don't see any regional Overwatch here in Vancouver. I don't know of regional sports teams that are showing up around Overwatch or esports in general.
I
So
think
how
the
do you
only
do
one we
regional
get
and sell it on that?
is I think the only we get on a semi-regular basis is in Finland. The Assembly Winter Tournament that we get
Yeah.
every, was it 4 to 6 months, I think. I'm not exactly sure of the timeline, but
And
that's the
maybe
only
that's
one.
Europe because
Yeah.
it's a bit tighter. But like here in North America, like if you ask for regional tournaments, it's like, well, me to play with you down in California, that's like not reasonable. Even though we're both West Coast, right? Like
Yeah.
on a tournament, that's almost as ridiculous as playing East to West Coast in a way. Anyways, um, one other thing before we move on to the actual schedule, Jax, how do you feel the numbers were this week when the Fortnite hit on Saturday
I
with
they
their big tournament?
The first day on Wednesday, I was, I think they got up to, like, did they make it 150? I think they're a
I
little
think
bit
they
under
did, yeah.
150 because I think that was the number that I asked you in our brief conversation that says, do you think they make 150? Um, I don't know. And then Friday, the numbers were a little bit lower than I like, but then Saturday, they went up against the Fortnite. They're starting their own was it $8 million series that they have going. It's a
Yeah,
stupid number, right?
something
But
like
this
that.
this one was only like 250,000 invitational tournament that they had just to test. It was basically a stress test, right? Which kind of failed because their servers were
It
struggling.
absolutely it did.
But what wasn't struggling though, Leplos, was when you go to Twitch chat and you just look, you go to browse, right, and it brings you up to all the games that are being streamed right now. You had League of Legends was at like 150, 120. I think they had maybe some LCS tournament. I don't know. Some tournament for League of Legends was going, and then Overwatch was a little bit behind at like 70,000. And then over the course of the day, it went up to about 100, 110. But then you look at Fortnite, it was broadcasting at the same time, 750,000. And it's like when
If-
I stopped for a second. It brought me back to the conversation that we saw between Slasher and Mark Cuban, sorry, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and Noah Winston of Valiant and Immortals. And and Mark Cuban was saying there's a limited amount of what am I looking here? Just time basically for
yeah,
people. Yeah,
viewer time that
yeah,
we
and what
have.
is, everybody has a set amount of entertainment time that they have. And you say if you have a Fortnite tournament and you have an Overwatch League tournament, like where are they going to go? So the question then becomes for the Overwatch League owners, like this is a shot across your bow because for sure they time this on purpose.
Oh
And
yeah,
so you're looking at the numbers and you're saying, are you okay with Fortnite pulling 7 times more than you are, right? Because the endorsements that you got for season one, Fortnite's going to be pulling them in for their season next year. When they Epic has already talked about $100 million prize pool, right? Compared to what the 2 million overall that they have for Overwatch League. And so it's gonna be a test. And for you and I, or viewers, we look at it, we say, oh, 100K, that's perfectly fine. But if you're an Overwatch League owner,
yeah.
who
You
knows?
should be really concerned. You should maybe consider
I mean, Lepelos,
moving
we
over.
when we're hearing that for potentially anywhere from what 30 to 60 million for season two expansion slots for Overwatch League,
Yeah,
I don't know.
definitely bit of a trouble, Jax.
I
I did
don't
want to ask
know.
you one
Yeah,
passing question there. If the Overwatch World Cup does better than the Overwatch League, is that actually trouble for the Overwatch League team
for
then?
the fine. I mean, here's it. Like the World
Like
Cup was
viewership
the
though.
World Cup was already pulling what 200, 400K at times. Uh,
Like, is
it's
that trouble though?
advertising,
Because your
right?
Overwatch
Because
League has more
because see, World Cup is
advertising.
always tied to BlizzCon, which pulls in all of Blizzard, right? So that the marketing giant that is Blizzard goes to work there. Like right now, I guess I wonder what the advertisement is like because I don't open myself up to ads. Like I'm basically on my computer most of the time, and I have ad blocker everywhere. But I
Yeah.
would really like to know: are people seeing ads? Like, but even when I go out, like I don't see any ads when I go around LA. Not that I'm expecting them, but they signed a deal with Disney, ABC, ESPN. Basically ABC, which owns Disney, or whatever the parent company is, which owns Disney, ESPN, ABC. They're broadcasting the Overwatch League on TV now, right? I think it's ESPN 3 and some Disney channel. But they did it the day before the quarterfinals start, so there's no advertising. But
And
even now,
just like the Twitch deal,
was
if
two
you
days
remember.
before the season one started, right? So it's
Brutal.
like they keep waiting to the last minute to make these deals. So hopefully, season one they'll work out a lot of their kinks so that for season two, even now for the grand finals, I need to see the marketing machine go to work.
I've
I
not
For
seen
the
it.
grand
I haven't
finals,
seen it.
man, Leplos, for the grand finals, people might say I'm wrong. If it's under 200K, I think that's a failure. No, okay, not a failure.
Yeah,
Failure is not wrong. Sorry. Failure is wrong. 200K, it's a disappointment. Under
I think it will
200K, I think
make
it's a disappointment.
200K. I think it will make
You think so?
200K at least. Yeah, because it's
I
going to be
mean,
the
it depends
finals.
on the
Like we've
teams,
seen.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
because if you think about it, the one of the most watched games was the very first one we had. Now, true, they had a lot going for 'em, right. It was the first day of Overwatch League. Everybody was waiting for it, but it was the biggest teams. You had Dallas and you had Seoul, right? And their following that they brought because Seoul was Lunatic High and Dallas was Envy and the story, franchises, and so all that came together for 400,000 viewers. But now, when you look at it, who could potentially be? I can't really say because we haven't done a rundown, and I don't want to spoil it. But you don't have any of the bigger teams, right?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, yeah. Not well. Obviously not Dallas or
Yeah.
Dynasty. That's for sure. Speaking of the rundown, Jacks, let's go ahead and do this. I am going to move us really quickly through the game
Oh,
so we can talk.
we're so far
We are
behind
really over time
schedule.
because we had a good
Yeah,
talk off the
we had a
start
good
today.
intro. Very
But
good. Yeah. I
Yeah,
liked it.
great intro. Doesn't leave us time for a great discussion, but that's okay. We're gonna move quickly through, starting with the Boston Philadelphia
Yeah.
series. Um, uh, any thoughts going into this one? We both picked the Fusion here, and
Well, I think we both
coming
said
into
Fusion
this,
will take it in straight
too.
sets. You know,
Yeah.
2-0, a quick 2-0 for them. You and I had doubts as to whether or not Boston could adapt to the patch. It was interesting. That's something Sideshow spoke about heavily in the pregame. To this starting on Wednesday, he said that when Boston is given time to
Oh my
adjust
goodness.
to a patch, their results speak for themselves. They had like what that was a 70 or maybe 75% win rate when Boston is given the weeks that like the 3 weeks that they had in between the end of the season and this quarterfinal that Boston, was going to bring it. You and I had doubts, right?
Yep.
And when you look at the day one here, you still are left with those same doubts if you're Boston.
I think
Um,
I think I said things accurately. You can't trust those, like, without putting them into context of
yeah,
the new meta. You can't put and what the meta was when they earned those stats. And I'll go right to the final map here when we discuss it in a second. You got to put them in those contexts when you discuss them, because if you don't and you just rely on the numbers of like map wins, that's a ridiculous thing to do. Because let's go ahead and go through the series here.
go for it.
The first series goes Philadelphia's way, 3-1 Dorado. They take the first map. Oasis 2-1, close one for Boston. Eichenwald 5-4 for Philadelphia. That was a interesting map.
Very entertaining
A
map.
lot of Hanzo there. And
Get really
Volskaya
into that.
Industries, Jax. This is the one that
That's
everyone was
Boston's
like,
best map
Boston's
left.
map.
That's Boston's best
2
map.
Oh, they got full held on Volskaya Industries, and I was not surprised by that.
Lepalose. Not only were they full held, we also have to take a look at what Fusion did there on their attack. It wasn't that they struggled. They had 322 seconds left in the time bank. So you're good with math, Lepalose. How many minutes is that?
That's over.
322 seconds.
That's 5 minutes and 22 seconds.
So if Boston is full held on their attack and has over and gives it up with 5 minutes left on their defense, it's not their best map anymore.
It is not their best map, and this immediately shuts down the two concepts here that were put forward by the analysts. One, that the map scores are really important overall,
Yeah.
right? Like, that obviously can have a role into it, but you have to put it into context of what metas were being played when they were doing well on it. Okay, so that
Yeah.
one's gone. Preparation, Jax. Both these teams had all the time to prepare. Where was that showing through here for Boston, do you think?
The thing that's what drove me crazy when I go back to what Sideshow was saying about how they are so well, they do so well at preparing. Was one of the quotes that I remember from Twitch chat, and yes, I'm quoting Twitch chat here, is a guy was said, Boston, just play dive. And you know why he said just play dive? Because it was the only thing they were semi good at on this day, Leplos. And you look at the one map they won, Oasis, which is Koth, which you know me. Koth is a straight coin flip. It's like whoever can kill the
The
other
first
team,
point, yeah.
that's what you get. And I'm not surprised at all that Boston won Koth. But you take a look at Dorado here, and I'm looking at Carpe and EQO on the double sniper compared to, say, Mistakes and Striker. The output just wasn't there. You go to Eichenwald. I mean, you talked about the dragons on Eichenwald. EQO, I think, was 50 seconds per dragon. And at one point, Leplos, it was actually 30 seconds. And you
Oh,
almost got tired of seeing a dragon because, Mistakes was also playing. You just had dragons going across your screen every every fight basically someone had a.
another dragon.
And you left wondering, you're saying to yourself, really, Blizzard, you had 3 weeks
Is
3 weeks from the end of the regular season to the playoffs. But not just that, because the entire stage 4, this Hanzo was being played on the live server
Yeah.
levels, so that's another 5 weeks, so you're now at 2 months Blizzard has had to address this hero.
I'm listen. I was
Okay.
I think I suggested that this hero should have been in stage 4, and I still think that because they put him in the freaking game,
Yeah.
and they would have quickly realized that this is not fun viewership. I think overall for the majority, and would have fixed the character. But instead, here we are. Okay, well, let's go talk about second series here. Boston bringing it back because your boy Dayfly is in on that Junkertown as
Lepalose.
Philadelphia dropped this map 5-4 to
Lepalose.
Boston Uprising.
I'm
off the start.
sitting here on Friday and I think you're getting ready for it was Friday at like
Yeah, yeah.
5 o'clock, and you're getting ready for your weekly Planet Side 2 stream that you do because you're the leader
Yeah.
of
So so I
the best
watched this
outfit.
one. Yeah.
And but I said I linked it in Discord. I'm like, Lepelos, explain. And I'm still waiting for you to explain
I
because
mean, the
when they
best we
said
got
Dayfly,
was
I'm like, are you? This is the playoffs, and they're bringing out Dayfly? Like, what? Oh man.
yeah, there was a tweet about this from Neptuno saying like put me in coach after he saw how they did on Junkertown. It didn't go well for Li Jiang Tower, another control point here being lost to Boston. So that puts them up 2. Philly couldn't make themselves or dig themselves out of the hole. They did get Kings Row 3-2, but lost it on Hanamura where they just didn't have enough to do what was necessary to hold off Boston on that map. Putting it to game or series 3, um, reset of things, and we're back on Junkertown, and it's no difference coming out of Philadelphia Fusion. Boston, smart move for them, going right back to Junkertown. I think they got that pick, right? So they're like, hey, we won it last time off the start, going right back there. No change up from Philly here. Same lineup, and similar result. 3-2 here. This time though, Philly says we're going back to Lijiang because we actually think we can take you. They managed to do that. From there, they go on to sweep the series in a 3-1 and get the 2-1 quarterfinal victory over Boston Uprising.
Let's give a little context here, Lepolos, right? Let's take you back to Neptuno and what you said about put me in coach because I had to go and pull up his Twitter page. Um, I'm saying to myself, Neptuno, when I see Dayfly, everyone, if you followed the Overwatch rundown for any length of time, you know I'm extremely critical of Dayfly, and I still wonder why he's in Overwatch League. Him and Free Field together. But he says on his Twitter page, thank you everyone for cheering for us. I just want to clarify that I woke up this morning sick and went to the doctor. I have tonsillitis with a high fever. I told the coaches that I couldn't play, so I wasn't going to play. Watching Junkertown, that first map which Day 5 played on, I told the coaches I felt good enough to play after that. Follow up Leplos, he
Wow.
says, felt like I have a kidney stone as well, but the adrenaline rush helped him. So
I mean,
tonsillitis, potential kidney stone. He says he's looking at
you
it.
feel
The
that
results.
bad. You feel that
I mean, Leplos,
bad.
when your team needs you, right? Like when you're Neptuno, potentially one of the best mercies in the league, and you see that your team is struggling without you in the playoffs, and he's like, I got to play. So, coach, I'm not 100%, but I feel like I can contribute. I can bring it. Put me in. And
I
okay.
mean, it's great. It's great that that he feels like that. I think the biggest thing, if I was PR again, I would not tell my player to say that. You know what I mean? Like, I, I,
I mean, because people question him.
you got to leave
People
it vague.
because then people question the coaches, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Wait a minute,
Why do
where
you
is
have the,
Neptuno, and why is that?" I mean, Leplos.
that? I
I
mean, that's
think the
fine.
thing that I don't
Coaches.
get. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, coaches. That's their purpose, though, right? Like the team knows what happens, and
Somebody, just take the heat for your players,
because
but
it's sort of throwing. And listen, I know you like throwing Dayfly under the bus, but like
he
throwing
put
your team.
himself in path of the bus, Lepolos.
I don't care who, like if it was another perform or player
Yeah,
underperforming too, right? Like you still
yeah.
don't want to, like even if they're not performing well, you don't throw teammates under the bus. And that,
I'm
like saying it in that kind of a fashion, being like, wow, I watched them play and man, they needed me in badly. It's like, well, it was true. It's also kind of like, well, get roasted, I guess,
I also
by your own
wonder.
teammate.
I look at what Dayfly was playing, right? He was playing Roadhog, was playing what did he play? Roadhog and Junkrat? He played something that wasn't a support. And I'm left wondering like with everyone you have on the bench, Dayfly is what you had? Like
Well, we know it wasn't going to be Joe Meister. Let's be
Lepelos,
honest.
Joe Meister,
Joe Meister's
Shadow
not coming in for
Burn,
anything. He's busy helping Chef Heidi in the kitchen.
Poco,
So,
Shadowburn, Joe Meister,
although I heard
Dayfly, dude, come
they had a food truck come up with cheesesteaks. That sounded pretty sweet
I
actually.
will say I went by her Twitter page, Chef Coach Heidi, bringing the
Best
food,
food.
man, kept keeping the team
So jealous.
strong. But let's just take a minute though. Let's take a look at Boston for a second, because Philadelphia did what we expected Philadelphia to do. We actually they struggled in the first series because we didn't actually expect Boston to win a series. So props to Boston for doing that. But when you compare the first day, it's like EQO played out of his mind on the Hanzo and whatever he flexed to, and EQO and Carpe had a field day. And then you go to the first game of the second day, and it's like Mistakes and Striker, they kind of stepped it up. And Mistakes in
Yeah.
particular really stepped up his game in that second series. And in the third series, after the break, Chef Coach Heidi probably threw down a snack and was like, "Y'all want to eat? You win. If you lose, I'm not feeding you." So they came back and they brought the heat. Like they lost Junkertown because again, they're running Dayfly. I'm sorry, Lev. I'm sorry, man. Like, it's no surprise that's the map that they lost. But then Lijiang Tower after that map, Lijiang Tower 2-0, Ikeval 3-1, Hanamura 2-1. And considering the format where the loser, you know, picks the maps, wow. And
I'm still a
if you're
little
Boston, right?
confused about the Eichenwald pick coming out of
What I mean, because it was close, I guess. And on the first day, and they felt comfortable on it. It
yeah,
was
I mean
actually a
they did
pretty close
capture
map,
out.
but
Yeah. I
there
mean
was,
the other alternative was King's Row, I guess, and
right.
I don't
But
know.
you look at Boston and you feel that you have to throw, if Sideshow were here sitting next to me, I'd be like, do you really feel that they spent 3 weeks preparing? Like when you brought up the stat and the numbers and you talked about how well Boston prepares, and I didn't see it, left. I look at the strategies that they were running and I'm saying this is the same thing they did in stage four. And I look at how many times that they actually tried to run dive. It's like you
We
can't
go
do this.
so we're right back to talking about coaching with them and their parent. This was one of our previews of them
You
being
re yeah, I was about to say, remember in the preview, they have assistant coaches, they have an analyst Leplos, they
general
don't
manager
have a
or
head coach,
uh,
right?
whatever Huck is, but
Hell, no, it's been, I think it's been reported that Huck,
he's like fulfilling some of the
stepped up.
duties. But
Look,
I
get a
mean,
coach. You had 3 weeks. You had all of
listen,
stage four. You had 3 weeks. That's 2 months to find a coach.
I'm just gonna say I saw in the r/StarCraft shortly after the losses, someone comment like that feeling when you see Huck playing ladder. Um, I guess he needs a break. Maybe that was a fake Huck. I don't know. I just thought it was sort of funny. Because unrelated game. But anyways, I think though we're we're both unsurprised by this result here. The biggest surprise was that Philly gave up series
Yeah.
number 2 to Boston, and the second biggest surprise was how much they played Hotba on Junkertown.
Listen,
So
I'm gonna
those two
give
things
Hot
aside,
no, and on the first day, on Volskaya when Hotball came in,
or sorry,
and
not Hotba. I'm thinking Dayfly. My apologies, but
no, no, no. But since
they
you
did
brought
play
him up, I
Hotba.
had forgotten about that. Since you brought him up, Hotba and what he did on Volskaya, where Stryker was playing his best hero up. He was playing Tracer, and that key moment on second point attack
Oh
where
yeah,
it's kind of off screen, but we see the fight start on screen, but of course the camera switch off, but all you see is Hotbutt killing Stryker in the kill feed,
in
and
Tracer
you're
v
saying to
Tracer.
yourself, did that really happen in a Tracer v Tracer fight? Like Stryker not pulling through there? And he stepped up, right? Because everybody's looking at this
Single
composition. You're
support.
like, what
Well,
is going on here?
I guess we're
But
talking about it again. We might as well talk about it a little,
yeah,
little bit longer. I'm gonna cut us off here
okay.
really briefly. But their composition, Jax, I'm gonna launch this one for you to take off. But their composition only had a single support there on defense, and it still worked out despite
I mean,
losing
because how
uh,
much faith do
a
you
couple
have
times.
in, but see, like on that first day when they're running it, you see how much faith that they have in Neptuno to play
Yeah,
Mercy, to hold down the support.
he
And
shot guys out of the
those
air.
moments, I'm about to say
That's
those
solo
moments
heal.
on Volskaya where he's got Valkyrie and he's chasing after Note and he gets the D-Mech on the Diva. You're like, did you do that? And then a minute later, he's outside of their spawn lap shooting the Winston and the Diva. He
He's
barely gets away,
he's
but
a solo
my
healer
goodness.
doing that, Jax. Like
Yeah.
I would flip my
I mean, but then
myself
when you
off.
think about that, right? And so you go from them having the confidence to run Neptuno on solo support to on Friday, 2 days later, where he's not even playing. What a loss that is
Yeah,
for the Philadelphia Fusion. So I'm not surprised that they lost that second series, but it wasn't just because Neptuno didn't play. He
no,
came in late, but
their
in
team
that
was a
second
little
series,
flat.
Boston stepped it up. Yes, you're correct. Everybody was flat, but mistakes, he raised his game. Striker, everybody from Boston came for that second game. And in the third series, they were like, enough. We want to eat Chef Heidi's food. We're putting it down. We're going to the semifinals. And because of their seeding and how the playoffs work, they will be going up against the New York Excelsior.
Yeah, that's true. We know that absolutely after this, and it doesn't matter what happens in the other quarterfinals. Speaking of other quarterfinal matchup, though, we had the London Spitfire taking on the Gladiators in day one. Jax, day one, huge
Shields up,
news.
Lepalose.
No, no, no,
Shields
no,
up.
no. Even before Shields Up, we got concerning stuff coming out. We got iRemix coming in. No
Shields down.
Fisher.
Lepalose.
No
Shields
Fisher.
down. um,
You messaged me. I listen again. I'm busy because this is during the middle
this
of
was
one
a
of my
Wednesday.
other
Yeah, yeah,
games.
yeah, yeah,
We can't mention other games, I guess, if we ever want to get sponsored by Blizzard. But
yeah.
um, I was playing another game, and you were messaging me, being like, iRemix is coming in, and it's not going to be Fisher today. It's like, do you want to change your prediction? I'm like, I probably wouldn't have, even if you gave me that option, and particularly not after they ended up winning day one. Jax,
I'm
Junkertown,
trying to
Lijiang Tower,
find.
Kings Row, all maps. It looked good, even with
I'm
iRemix in.
trying to find a specific quote here from Overwatch League caster Monte Cristo. This is at 4:51 p.m. before the game even starts. Uploads. Fisher must have literally killed someone to get benched for the Gladiators in the playoffs. Gladiators hamstring their own playoff hopes and simultaneously tanking Fisher's trade value. Unbelievable decision. That's what Monte Cristo had to say.
I listen. I still would not chew back on those words, even when Gladiators got the win here.
Lepelos, here's the deal. On this day, we had the MVP was decided. For those who are not aware, it was given to Jonak. No surprise there. But the runner-up
Sorry.
was Fisher,
Oh yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Fisher is the runner-up as the MVP.
Number two.
When the second most valuable player in the league is benched right before the playoffs start,
Yeah,
what is
no,
happening
it's
here?
it's crazy. I don't care what you say. I don't you get this first series win. If I was Gladiators, like,
I mean,
I
look,
don't know. They're in trouble. They're like, I know they got this win here, but you're a little concerned because London we're not going to expect this coming out of Gladiators. So
this is something
you
that
got
I
them
wanted
fooled.
to
And
talk to you
speaking
about.
of fooling them, though, before we got to move on, we got to
Yeah,
mention that Kings Row strat here on attack for Gladiators, because what a mind game they played
fantastic.
on
I
Spitfire
mean, the
there.
clips are out there. Everyone has seen. It's been dissected. It's actually not that complicated, but it's just fantastic. And the fact that 8 hours later, a contenders team in Korea tried to do the same thing, and they're like, "Bruh, we watch Overwatch League just like you. You can't do this."
Yep.
And the Gladiators even say themselves, this is a one-time thing where they pull Shofar on the baguette and they leave him in spawn on King's Row while the team speeds through, speeds the high ground, draws all this attention to themselves, like, "Hey, we're over here, we're over here." And then Shofar switches to the Widow, bang, Mercy, bang, enemy Widow, you're gone.
The
And they take
key
like,
the key point being he hits his shots there,
yeah.
right? Like,
If
he
you
needs to
miss,
hit those shots.
if you miss and you give Birdring time to react and you know London time to react, who knows? I mean, I feel safe in saying that how the day was going and how they were playing, even if that particular strategy had failed, they would still have won. But this first day, fantastic play out of the Gladiators. And what I wanted to talk to you, just briefly about, we often mention that when it comes to the all Korean teams, and what we think or perceive here is how much preparation matters to these teams, right? When
Yeah.
they break down what the enemy team is likely to do, how the enemy team plays. And when you find out an hour before you play that the second most valuable player in the league, a person who used to be on your team, is not going to be there, then that throws your strategy completely gone. I Remix and Fisher couldn't be any more different, Levelos. How the team plays around them couldn't be any more different. So the fact, I mean, you and I both picked the Gladiators to win the series, especially considering that London had never beat them. But this change, it actually works in the Gladiators' favor because London just could not have been prepared for this. It's impossible to prepare for Fisher to not be there.
Yeah, and so part of me wondered if this was like literally a mind game on London for that first day or
Right.
not. But no, it's not. The second series goes on and it's still iRemix, and like everything in between suggests that was going to be iRemix, and we can come back to
Oh,
to
Deathloop. Not
the
we can't.
discussion.
We're going to come back to this, but yeah.
Yeah.
You might as well give us a rundown of the second day's scores.
Second day, I mean, let's be honest. Okay, we second series horrible for Gladiators.
Yeah.
2-1 Dorado loss to Spitfire. Spitfire go on to take Oasis 2-0. Oasis Jax. There's that map score not really having an effect on your playoff play. The map wins, because we all know London was supposed to be bad at that map, but here they are 2-0ing
Yeah.
Gladiators pretty strongly too, and then a 3-0 on Eichenwald. And just like that, an even stronger London tie up the series tie up the matchup, forcing
Yeah.
us
1-1.
to a third series.
This is just mind-boggling. One of the things I'm frustrated most, and I've said it before, so I'll be brief, is I want stats. I want numbers. Because I go to the various websites and I can't even see exactly what everybody played. So I'm trying to remember from memory here what the Gladiators played on Oasis, because you brought up Oasis as a surprise at how London won that 2-0. But one of the things that stood out to me was they were running. I think Reinforce called it this gimmick comp where Surefour was playing
Yes, the soldier.
the soldier, and he was saying that it's all about the speed because they had the Lucio, they had, they were running a speed comp to just push in and get in and use the extra sustain from the soldiers biotic field. It was all about get speed in, get in their face, pound it out. And London laughed and was like, "Are Chauffeur really playing Soldier in 2018?" And then goes to the second map and he's playing McCree, and basically just ineffective play from the Gladiators here. And you're left wondering right now, like, what is going on here? Um,
Yeah,
because the analysts, one of the things that they brought up were that not just that the London had never beat the Gladiators, but that they had just lost all of these maps. So, like, these are some of the worst quote unquote maps for London to actually have to play on when their playoff life is on the line. And then London was like, "Are you kidding me? We're going to beat them, and we're going to beat them into the ground." And then I don't remember if it was before. I think might have been either at the start of this Lepalose or at the start of the second game that was played on Saturday. But they interviewed Susie Kim, the general manager for London, and she said, "We're no longer afraid of the Los Angeles Gladiators." You know? And when she says that, you know what I just stop and think about is, one, at this point, more and more news has been coming out about Fisher. Like, everybody's like, where is Fisher? Where is the MVP of this team? And we start to hear that from Fisher himself, because we have other outside sources who are reporting that Fisher wanted an all Korean team. He wanted, the language barrier was a problem, and it was just an insurmountable, and you're just saying to yourself, he went 3 stages, and then now, right as you go to the playoffs, language is a problem? Like, where is
that's
this coming from, right? And then so Fisher, he comes out and says, "Listen, he's wrong. We scrimmed, we tried it out. iRemix is better in the current meta than I am." And everybody is, "What? Did he
some
say
people
that?"
some people really listen. There are still heated debates about this on the forums, where some
Leplos.
people believe the word of Fisher and the team, and they respect authority that they can't think for themselves, and then there are people
So
that think for themselves and say this is really messed up. What they're saying is different than what's actually happening, and that's clear
so
because
for people who I mean, for people who say that, right? If you go I'm gonna take you back to Reinforce. He was the only one out of all the analysts, and he has a Twitter post about it. He was the only one that picked London to win, and one of the reasons why is he said Fisher's aggressive play doesn't work in the current meta because of how punishing Hanzo is to tanks. Now, I actually agree with that. And if you go back to last week's episode, I talked briefly about, can Fisher rein it in when he's facing, the storm arrows, or when we take a look at what the South Korean team did where they picked Fate over Fisher. One, because Fisher's aggressive playstyle doesn't fit with the bulk of the team, which is New York Excel, whereas Fate does, right? So you're
yeah.
saying, there is some truth to what is being said here. But I have to ask you, Lepos, if you're the coaches, right? You won day one 3-0. You lose day two 3-0, and you have I mean, it wasn't even close. At this point, it's the final deciding map. How bad could it have been with Fisher for you to stick with iRemix here? Like,
Well, it was bad enough where you didn't even have him in the arena, so they knew it wasn't an option. And I go to
what?
management and coaching problems because I don't care what happened or the fact that he okayed it. You need to at least potentially have all your players there in case A, something happens, B, to make the other team think that you could bring them in at
Lepelos,
any
we've
given time.
already seen iRemix unable to play because of a broken toe. What if in the course of this first series here, right? He's upset with how bad they get beat. He kicks a wall, he re-breaks the toe, and Fisher's not there. Then
Yeah.
what do? You
Yeah, it would
see?
be big
But
trouble.
putting that aside, I remember I was in, a thread on Reddit. I'm like, wait a minute. Is Fisher actually on Reddit when his team is getting beaten to the ground like this? And then he goes on. For the record, he was there on Reddit. He says that he and Asher aren't even in the stadium. They're at home at the crib in the
Yeah, that's
Gladiators
that's
house
trouble.
chilling.
And I'm
What?
just going to refer back to I believe it was in stage 4 where he missed a couple of games for quote unquote sickness.
Maybe it was stage 3. It doesn't matter what
Maybe it
stage,
was
but
stage.
yeah,
I think there was one in stage 3 at late stage 3 and one in stage 4 at least, both where he was sick and then he started streaming at least the stage 3 one immediately after the game
yeah.
was done, and it was just sort of like yeah okay, and like remix one if I remember
So
correctly. But I'm
the
just
thing,
saying, I think there's ongoing issues that while they are trying to PR up their own stench here, I'm pretty sure something smells fishy.
so the one of the reasons why I brought this up is, and why I brought up what the general manager for London said when she said we no longer fear the gladiators. And I think I asked you, was she saying that they don't fear the gladiators because the big bad boogeyman Fisher is no longer there? If you take like I want you to imagine this, Lepolos, because after the first series, it was widely reported that Fisher was done for the entire playoffs. One, I cannot believe the Gladiators let that out. You know how you were talking about Neptuno, talking about his illness? I can't believe that they let Fisher say he's done for the playoffs. That
Yeah,
is just
unacceptable,
from a
unacceptable
mind
on
game
both sides.
standpoint, it
Yeah,
blows my mind that you
unless
allowed
they're
him to
trying
say
to
that.
sandbag into the
Right.
next stage, which I don't
I'm
think they would.
Lepos. That's my mind is
I
blown. But
don't I don't
imagine
think so.
if you're the
But
London coaches, right? And so after the first game, you've just been beaten really badly by the Los Angeles Gladiators, and you're sitting. You got 2 days off, and you just sit there, and the light bulb goes off, and you pull your team together, and you say, "I get it. We've never beaten them. You may or may not be afraid of them, but let's just stop and look at what we're facing right now." And do you know what he pulled up, Lepelos? He pulled up footage. I have no idea. I'm just hypothetical, right? He's sitting around their house by the pool, chilling. And he pulls up footage of the Los Angeles Gladiators from stage 1. And he says, "This is who you're facing.
yeah,
Fisher is not here." The Los Angeles Gladiators in stage 1, they had iRemix as their main tank. And so he pulled up footage for stage 1 where the Gladiators finished, I think, eighth, only above Florida and Shanghai. And he says, "This is who you lost to. This is who you are afraid of. Stop. You can beat them." And when you go and you watch that, you know, all the analysts, or you go to the Twitter for the analysts who weren't in the stadium, and they say London is playing a completely different play style than they did the first day. London is aggressive. They're taking it to the Gladiators. They're pressuring because they Big Goose, right? Big Goose doing his very best to imitate Dayfly with always coming off of respawn, right?
yeah, it was pretty
And
bad.
you just look at all the pressure that London was bringing onto them. And you know why? Because they don't have to fear Fisher. They don't have to fear him punishing their push. With iRemix in, it's literally iRemix. Just the Gladiators are saying, "Listen, you're our tank. Just be our tank. Just don't lose it for us." And at that point, when I'm watching and the general manager comes out and says, "We no longer fear the Gladiators," that's when I kind of was worried as a Gladiator fan because you needed that fear. And your fear, Lepelos, is at home in the air conditioned house watching while writing on Reddit and your team is losing. So now we're going into the final series. Has Coach Deepay, we saw the assistant coach, right? His nice slick back hair. I forget his name. We praised the
Apologies about
coaching
that.
staff, right? Day 1, we praised the coaching staff for what they did. So run down the final series, Lepos.
It's not any better here. Junkertown 3-2, Spitfire 2-0, Lijiang Tower again. Spitfire, by the way, uh, I know why they went there again, but you're still bringing out some weird comps on that one. Kings Row 5-4 to close it out for the Spitfire.
They're done.
It's a 3-0,
Shields
two
down.
3-0s on the same day. The whole series were 3-0s.
Lepos, they lost 6 maps in a row, dude. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah, that's more domination than you can imagine. And Jax, this brings up a point that I wanted to talk about, which
go
we
for it.
maybe touched on briefly previously, which is having two matches on one day for a series. I think is a bit silly. Like, I feel like. Oh, I feel like this gives an advantage to whichever team wins on that second day first. I know Boston ended up winning and Philly managed to
Yeah.
bring it back. I still find it weird. I would have
Oh, dude,
preferred
I
that you
completely,
split
I
this
don't
up.
know why. I mean, they still had
I I,
Sunday.
I
Like, I
think it's
don't. Okay,
scheduling, right? Like they want to ensure that people who come on Friday are or sorry, Saturday are going to have a game and it's not scheduling two optional games, you know what I mean? You're guaranteed at least
I
one game and I think that's purely what it is because I can't think of what else it would be.
I don't care for playing back-to-back games. I mean, I haven't liked it ever since MLG Vegas, where who was it? The old FaZe
Rogue
Clan
and
had, FaZe Clan had to play a 2.5 hour series, and then, oh hey, you got a 5 minute break, and then you had to play Envy. It's like,
oh
can
yeah, yeah.
we? There's no breast. No, sorry, there's no break or anything. So I don't like it. I completely agree with you with that. I take you back to stage one, where who was it? London had to play like 14 hours of
Outlaws, yeah.
Overwatch
It was
because
ridiculous.
of how it was scheduled. So I agree. I don't like it. I think it's bad. Um, but
And here I think it
Lepo,
favored Spitfire too,
I
but
mean, it favors Spitfire, but let's
listen, that
let's be
doesn't
honest,
undo
man.
what Gladiators sort of shot themselves in the foot. There's going to be a lot more to discuss in the
Well,
future, and we're not going to do it all on this episode about
no,
Fisher.
no, it's
We're going
it's
to let
just
some of the fallout come out, I think, over this next week, so we can
oh,
really dig
I
into
mean,
it
there's
next
there's
week.
there's fallout for it, and I kind of heaped a lot of it on Fisher. I heaped a lot of it on I remix the tanks, but on that day too,
Coaching.
like you keep it on coaches, but let's
Well, no,
let's
Silk
let's
Thread
be real,
in
dude. The
so much.
DPS, like let's just if you just take 30 seconds to say, if you put the tanking aside, they ran Silk Thread on so many maps on his Hanzo.
Yeah.
His Hanzo was bad. Like it was bad.
I don't know why they didn't have hydration anymore. We're talking so much about gladiators, Jax. I do want us to move on. So the last thing I want to say in this segment before we move on is
Gladiators are almost said a bad word. I'm
we
sorry.
gotta talk about London though. London did excellent,
Yeah,
and on the second day particularly. In fact, Birdring I think is one of the major reasons why that London were able to 3-0 twice in a row. Gladiators here, and I know Profit got like the MVP of the second match, and Fury was the MVP of the first match on that second day. But I don't see how Birdring was not on that because he
no,
absolutely shut down Surefour, which is one of the criteria I think we discussed
I
about
take
what
you
London
back
had to do.
to the second series on Li Jiang, on the Garden specifically, where Surefour was just getting picked one hour after Birdman was just all over him.
Yeah,
And it was a team issue as a whole. And since we're not going to, I could go on and on about how the Gladiators failed, but the Spitfire could only play the team that was put in front of them. And because the Gladiators failed in their own team management, the Spitfire were like, listen, this is the playoffs. There's money on the line. There's prestige on the line. We're representing the UK, which is kind of down right now because they lost their semifinal game. They lost their third place game in the World Cup, Lepalose. So
yeah,
at least they can cheer, or London can cheer this Overwatch League victory. They come across another LA team next week in the Valiant, which we'll come to after our rundown portion here. But I agree with you, and I agree with you on the day that Birdring's performance on Widow was spectacular. Prophet, you see the numbers. Like Prophet did what Prophet always does. He played very well. Same with Fury. Same with Gesture. They all played well. But Birdring, like you have to. I mean, you have to hit the shots as Widow. It's a lot less forgiving than Prophet, who's playing the Hanzo, who could just storm arrow his way to 30 kills in a map. Birdring, because we've been critical of him throughout, stages 2, 3, and 4. Right? We're like, can he regain that form from stage one? And if he can keep up this level of play levels, series next week against the Valiant will be very interesting.
Absolutely. Okay, well let's move on into our rundown of the contenders action though. Tier two scene as they call it. Starting with North America, Jax, we're only through 2 weeks now. I think we're just gonna do standings instead of matches.
There's so much to
There's
run down,
so many
Lepalose.
matches. The big match for the NA this week was the Toronto Esports Sky Foxes game, which ended up going 5. TO taking that one over Sky Foxes to secure their 2-0 current top standing of the charts for Group B. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about standings. Group A,
Okay.
Gladiators, Fusion University, both sitting at 2-0. MAM Academy 1-1, Esports Academy or GG Esports Academy 1-1. Last night's leftovers, second win 0-2. That's Group A. I'm just gonna point out, Jax, all the bottom two teams happen to not be academy
They're the
teams.
endemics, man. Like, I mean,
And the other side is pretty much the same story. Toronto Esports 2-0, XL2 Academy 2-0, NRG Esports 1-1, Team Envy 1-1, and then you have Sky Foxes 0-2, bye week 0-2.
the closest you can get is Envy, which is the former Envision, minus Jaru plus Tailspin. And even then, they're at the bottom
But I
of
mean,
the
isn't Envy owned by
yeah
Team? Yeah,
Dallas. But
so the
but it's just that there's no. I mean, listen, the post that the coach of XL2 made is, it's not wrong, Lep. Like everything he said is right. I'm actually wondering how the New York Excelsior feel about him making a post like that because I'm
he's
sure
still.
Blizzard kind of got on them like, can you rein your guy in a little bit?
I'm
Like
sure.
we don't need this
Are
kind of
you
negative press, but he's honest, so I appreciate that.
are you
Um,
suggesting Blizzard might try and moderate somebody's voice in the community about negative opinions about Blizzard?
yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
Blizzard would never do something like
I
that.
know, I
Okay,
know.
let's talk about European contenders though. There was another series that went to 5 games. That was British Hurricane Bazooka Puppies this week. In fact, it was a reverse sweep here as British Hurricane come from the 2-0 deficit here to win 3-2 against Bazooka Puppies. Man,
Hmm.
Jax, I feel like Bazooka Puppies just can't buy a break. And even here, that's the case. Group A, though, Group A in European action, we have 2-0 Angry Titans. From there, everyone is 1-1. That's Young and Beautiful British Hurricanes, Six Snakes, Orglis in Hungary, and then Bazooka Puppies, Jax, Sad Puppies at
And Angry
0-2.
Titan hasn't even dropped a map
Yeah.
yet. Lepos 8-0, very strong
Speaking
from them.
of not dropping a map, CIS Hope also perfect
Wow,
map
okay.
score line 2-0. Team Gigante have dropped maps. They're at 2-0, but a +4, having dropped 2 maps. Eagle Gaming 1-1, 1 point, 1-1. We have Org 0-2 and not picking up a single map. Copenhagen Flames not doing so well right
Feels
now
bad.
in Group B action in the European contenders. So let's go ahead talk about Korea. I thought you did tune into some of these games this week, Jax, if I
Nope.
remember correctly. Or not? No,
No.
it's
I
there's
okay,
more
listen.
games in the Korean scene, right? Like they have.
Because so for those who are unaware, I told Lepos there's a limited amount of Overwatch for me to have in my life every week. I've been playing more and streaming more Overwatch, which means I'm watching less and quite often. A couple of times since I'm a late night player, when I'm streaming is when Contenders Korea is going on, so didn't watch it.
You didn't even catch the other series that went 5 this week, and that was 7 winning over MVP Space here, also in a reverse sweep here as well.
I
So,
mean, the big
couple of
games for the
interesting
week,
matches.
Levelos, were on the 14th. Runaway versus X6 Gaming.
Yep.
X6 was season one contenders champions, and here they are
Not
losing
even
to
close.
Runaway 4-0.
Not even. It's
Like,
not. Look
and
at the score lines. It's like 2-1 Helios. Yeah, close. Blizzard World 2-1. Volskaya Industries 1-0.
but then
Dorado
Levelos,
2-1.
the other big game of the week was Element Mystic versus O2 Ardent, which was the runner-up to X6 Gaming in season one contenders. And what do you have here? Element Mystic 4-0 them as well. 2-1, 2-1, 5-4 was close, but it's Horizon Lunar Colony, so we don't really count it. And then 1-0 Dorado. And so you're saying the first place and the second place team from season one are now getting beat like this? So okay. Runway though looking really good, and a lot of people saying that one of the expansion teams should be a Korean team, and to just go ahead and sign all of Runaways to that new expansion team.
It's quite likely that at least one more Korean team will be fully signed, as is this upcoming expansion season. But let's talk about standings. Runaway sitting up
Okay.
at 3-0, only dropping 2 maps. They're +9. Team Kongdu Panthera 2-0 right now. Still have to play that third game. Metabellum 2-1. X6 Jax. This is not the first game they lost. 1-2.
They're the season 1 champions.
They've lost 2 games so far. They lost last week to Metabellum, so they're down 2 already. World GameStar H2 also 0-2, and Blossom unfortunately 0-3. That's Group A. Group B, Element Mystic, same scoreline as Runaway actually. Although they managed to, they're only +9, but they drew one map instead of losing. So I guess that's slightly better. I'm not sure.
Slightly better. Yeah.
Slightly better. Seven scoreline is 2-1. So it is our O2 Ardent sitting at 2-1. GC Busan Wave 1-1. And sorry, I want to say NC Foxes every time I see them. They're just Foxes now. They're 0-2, and MVP Space 0-3.
I do want to point out, Lep, and while I probably won't, it depends. I say probably won't because I probably won't. But big games this week in Korea. You have 7 versus O2 Ardent, which is 2 versus 3 in Group B. That is on July 21st. And then on July 22nd, you have Runaway versus Kongdu Panthera, which is 1 versus 2 in Group A. So a couple big games right there.
Moving on to China, I'm going to do this one quickly because it looks like there was a lot of zeros on the board over the last couple of weeks.
Oh boy.
So Lucky Future Zenith 3-0, T1W Esports 3-0, League Gan Esports 2-1, and then from there, Jack's Group A is looking pretty rough shape. 666 Legend, Flag Gaming Feature Group all sitting at without a win right now. So Feature Group 0-3, the other two at 0-2. Group B Action Team CC sitting at 2-0. Just behind them, having one more game played, but a loss. Hero Taciturn Panther at 2-1. Moss 7E Club, LG Gaming, both 1-1. Legend Young Beyond, 1-2 right now.
Lepalose.
And Lucky Future at 0-2. I still find it's so disappointing if you're Lucky Future to have this other team come in, take over your name, add something to it, and you're still Lucky Future, but you can't even win a game. It feels bad on multiple fronts.
Tomorrow on the 16th, you have for Group B, LGD, which is the number 4 team versus the number 3 team of Moss 7 Club. But the big game, Lepalos, is next Sunday, July 22nd, probably before we play. Before we air, you have Lucky Future Zenith versus TIW Esports. Both of them are 3-0. Lucky Future Zenith has not dropped a map, whereas TIW has dropped 1. So it'll be 1 versus 2 in Group A. I'm somewhat interested in that because Lucky Future Zenith, the all Korean team, is just beating up on everyone in China, and I'm looking China fight back, fight back and beat them.
Yeah,
please,
absolutely.
So, TIW, it's your turn to try.
Or as Seagull says, get good. If we're speaking about games, I do want to bring this one up even before we go into standings because you brought it up. Let's go ahead and talk about Contenders Australia in Group B. There is a Japanese team that has a 2-0 record right now, and also in the group, Hong Kong Attitude also sitting at 2-0.
That's Pacific.
Sorry, I'm in Pacific. My apologies about that Australian call there. Yeah, in Pacific region. And these two teams go up to face each other on July 21st. That's basically 5 days and 8 hours, it says here. So from
that's
now,
interesting. I mean, Cyclops Athlete Gaming is also mainly a lot of the Japanese national team comes from Cyclops Athlete Gaming. So like I said last week, it's good to see the Japanese arriving, man, on the international scene and doing something because Sun Sister was so bad.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they can keep it up, man. I'm hoping they can keep it up. That's a strong group though. Hong Kong Attitude, Blank, although Blank is not what it once was.
And I can't speak to these other two as strong right now.
We'll
speaking of the action right now, Machi Esports, EXL Esports in Group A at 2-0. 1-1 teams, Monster Shield, KR, Talent Esports 1-1, Mega Esports, New Paradigm 0-2. Group B, we had that Cyclops and Hong Kong Attitude 2-0, Blank at 1-1, Xavier 1-1, and then down at the bottom, Nova Incipients both 0-2. Let's actually do the Australian thing this time, Jax, properly. Week 2 matches. We had another forfeit this week. I just wanted to mention. Different team though. Different team forfeited. This week it was Bin Chickens forfeiting to Sydney Drop Bears. It was probably going to be a loss anyways. I'm not sure what this one is all about, why they could not play that day. But listen, Path to Pro, I don't blame you. You know, difficult stuff. Group A
One of
right
the lower
now,
prize
Sydney Drop.
pools for us. It's kind of odd though. It's not right, dude. I mean, one of the lower prize pools. When I take you back to World Cup qualifying last year, the best audience that they had, Leplos, when they went to all these cities around the
I
world, was the Australian one in Sydney. Like, that
you
was the
got
best crowd.
you got to work with what you're given, right?
Come
And
on,
Blizzard, come on, your crowds were out in
show them some
Australia. Let's
money,
see,
man. Show them
yeah,
some money, some
show them
dollars.
some support. They showed you some
For
support, so at
real.
least you could
Yeah.
do. Anyways, Sydney Drop Bears sitting at a perfect score because of that default. They're at 2-0 with an 8 on their map score line right now. Legacy Esports also 2-0, having dropped only a single map. Tainted Binds, Blank Blue, both 1-1. Dignity 0-2, Bin Chickens 0-2. Over in Group B, Darksided and Kanga Esports, both 2-0. Avant and Masterminds GC. Jax, Masterminds GC, I think they won last. Or were
Did
they?
they?
Oh no, Sydney Drop Bears won. Why?
Yeah, yeah.
They were looking good last season
I
though.
mean, Mastermind GC, we followed them, Dark-Sided,
Yeah, Darkseid doing well, but
not at
Masterminds
all.
GC sitting at 1-1 right now. Serenity Esport or Serenity and Pixel Esports sitting at 0-2 in that scene. That takes us to their fellow Southern Hemisphere over in South America, where we had start into the third week, although matches are all over the place. Like first week we had 3 matches, second week we had 6. Now we only have 3 matches in week
Yeah.
3 partially done, so we're all over the place. Brazil Gaming House still sitting at 2-0. Perfect map scoreline. Encore Esports 2-0. Breakdown Gaming, Nocturnes Gaming 1-1. Caverna and Revolt sitting at 0-2. Group B action. Only Black Dragons Esports sitting at 2-0. Pain, 2Kill Gaming, Isurus Gaming, Hephaestus. I can't even say it still.
Hephaestus. Hephaestus, yeah.
Hephaestus. All right.
We went over this, the
Hephaestus.
god with the
We did.
hammer from Greek Pantheon. We're
I
not going
see.
back
I
to
only
last
say
week
it
we
once
talked
every
about
7 days though, so it gets
Yeah.
hard to learn. They're sitting at 1-1, and then Predators Esports sitting at 0-2. That brings us up to date where we are with the Contenders, Jax. There is a lot of stuff going on in Contenders. It's really hard to, from an overview standpoint, really get a sense of
Who
what's
can
going on.
watch this much, dude?
I
Who-
cannot watch as much. I do like trying to keep up on them, but man, we have
Like I
enough
said,
to
I
keep
pointed
up
out a
with
few games
just
for
the
people to
playoffs.
check out. Like, if you have time, if you can find. Although now that we have English VODs for everything now, the Chinese game between Lucky Features Zenith and TIW, I might try to find time to watch that levels. It depends on how close these Overwatch semifinals are, and I guess it's time to do our predictions for that.
Yeah, and you have me linked here after all of our discussions earlier today about map percentages.
Hey,
You have it linked for me like right here again, like right off the top. Like this is gonna be like Lepalose. Here, let's
I
talk
mean,
about
we've
these
got
map
the maps that they're
percentages.
going to be playing on, and then we've got the percentages. But as last week showed us, this is it's just it's it's everyone like if you're gambling, you want data to work with, right? So this is just a little more data for you to
I don't
work
know.
with
You say
before you
data,
place your
Jax.
bets.
I say a little bit of noise to that data is
Yeah.
what's coming up from them because honestly, it's hard to get a read in the current meta with all the changes that have happened. And we were talking about this first series, which Valiant Spitfire, and the issue here facing Valiant. Now that we've seen Spitfire and seen them do well, particularly on the second day,
Listen,
like the biggest question I think you brought to me or that comes to my forefront is can agilities or whomever cover a good Hanzo for the
it'll be
Valiant?
agilities. It'll
And
it'll be
yeah,
agilities.
it'll be
But
agilities.
I think after the Gladiator series, when the professional players will start streaming again on Saturday, you brought to my attention that Custer was streaming. He was very vocal, Levels, very vocal about the London Spitfire team, and he's extremely confident in their ability to play. Everybody's talking about Birdring, Birdring, Birdring. He says, "Listen, I've got a Frenchman. He'll take care of Birdring." He says, "I'll take agilities over profit." Especially in the Farah game, he was not as confident about agilities Hanzo. Like I heard a little waver in his voice there, man. Like
Yeah, I don't
he's a
doubt
little
it.
concerned about agilities
And you consider
Hanzo.
gesture from Spitfire is still a really good
I mean,
tank.
Gesture and Fate. I think Gesture is better than Fate, but I
But in the
think that
current
but
meta, like the
that's in a
teamwork
Winston
focused
meta,
meta,
and
as
so, yeah,
Fisher has told
I
us.
think and it's Ryan Orisa. I'll take Fate. Um, but let's take this is we're not gonna look at the numbers. Let's just look at the maps of just the first series. Like we're not gonna do both series. The first
Yeah.
series, those right? Junkertown, Lijiang, Kings Row, Hanamura, and Dorado. And you look at that and hmm. So the first map, that's gonna be your double sniper territory, right? And so I'm gonna ask you before you can ask me, Lepalos, does Birdering stay in form? Does he bring the same widow that we saw yesterday?
I mean, it's such a
Because
volatile hero
and
ultimately.
it's Birdring who has not been consistent throughout the entire season.
And as I said against LA, I don't trust in Birdring long enough to bring it. This is one of those high variability things. Like Soon could come out absolutely flat in game
Yeah.
one, and it doesn't matter how bad Birdring is. Valiant could lose it, or like they could both be on fire, and it's still sort of a crapshoot about who will end up on top. I think I trust in Soon to come up clutch in the big games, as he has shown consistently years ago on Tracer and more recently on Widow during the Overwatch League team
Yeah.
games as himself. Like he has that skill. He seems to play up to the level of the match when it really matters, and I trust in him more than I trust in Birdwing to do that
Okay, then
here.
let me just ask you this then, and I'll ask you about it again when we cover New York here. Position for position, who do you think has the advantage here, right? If you go main tank, Fate, Gesture, off tank, Space, and Fury, DPS, Birdering, Soon, Agilities, Prophet, um,
It's
uh,
such a good matchup, man. It
Custa
is such
versus
a good matchup.
Nuss, and Kareev versus Bedosin. Like, this
This
is
is
pretty close, right?
this could
I
be a
mean,
finals. Like I honestly believe in the current meta, this could be a finals. Obviously, like I'm not the other semifinals really good too. So like
yeah.
I don't want to knock them too much, but like this is what you wanted to see coming down to it because they're
I know.
all
What I
performing
wanted
pretty
to
well.
see Lepalose was the Los Angeles Gladiators here and a return to the battle for LA. But since I was robbed of that by Fisher, I'm forced to look at this right here. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm going with the Valiant and I'm gonna say they take it. I'm going back, they'll take it in two. I'm not buying the London Spitfire
I
because, well, listen,
Jax,
they can only play the team that's put in front of them. Sadly, that Gladiator team that was put in front of them made it very easy for them to win in the quarterfinals. But I'm going to take you back to Bird Ring and what he was able to do. And like I told this one person on Reddit who was trying to defend iRemix to me, yes, iRemix did not make a lot. He made some, not as many mistakes as he normally does. But that when you look at you think of it like that, you're saying, iRemix, I'm counting on you to not cost us the game. Okay, that's fine. But then if it was Fisher, right? You look at Fisher and you're saying, what did Fisher do to win us the game? Like, what plays did Fisher make to win us the game? And one of the biggest things that Fisher would have done would be to sit on Bird Ring and make someone else beat them. Sure, for Lepos, he struggled, right? That a lot of that is on him for not hitting his shots, but he didn't really get any help from his team. He didn't get any help from his tanks. And I promise you, Fate and Space in particular
yeah.
will not let Bird Ring get comfortable and pop off. They are going to be all over him. And without that Widow presence, no, not at all, dude.
Yeah,
Not at all.
I mean, I agree with that assessment. That's pretty strong. And I'd also say I think there's a reason why Fate was chosen to the Korean team,
Yeah.
as well right now.
And Space,
And
I mean, like right
and
now,
Space is
Space, from
young
only
and
stages 3 and 4, like as
yep,
good as Fury is, Space has been, he might be the best off tank right now in Overwatch League. We haven't seen him since, it's been 3 weeks since 4 weeks since we've seen him. But Space, who was only eligible for stage 3 and 4, he came out like there's a reason Envy is not
yep,
on the team. I mean, part of that is his attitude, but two is because we don't need you. We have Space.
yeah.
So
And next to that too, then I also want to mention Grieve as his potential flex. As
yeah,
we've seen more and more teams run
yeah.
with a solo healer on certain maps, and you can talk about that with Fusion
You
on
gotta have faith in Custa,
Polska.
right? Like if
I
you're
mean,
running solo
Testa, great,
support,
yeah,
Custa, the
and I
confidence
do, but
the confidence is there, and I think part of you kind of need that when you're a professional. You have to believe in yourself and believe in your team, and actually believe it, and he does.
and you got to pick Valiant before I did again, so I have to jump on that bandwagon. So
I
that's
mean, like I
unfortunate.
said, dude.
Jax,
I mean, listen. Congrats to Spitfire. You can only play the team that's put in front of you. They did. They won. So congrats to making it to the semifinals. But unless the Los Angeles Valiant have another in and out debacle, you're not beating them. Or unless Agilities is just that bad at Hanzo.
yeah, I mean,
Can
there
he
are
be that? I
ways
mean,
to
it's Hanzo.
failure
Can you
here, but
be? I was gonna ask, can you be that bad at Hanzo? And then I see Silk Thread over here in my corner looking at me. I'm like, yeah, you can be that bad at
you
Hanzo.
can
The
be.
Silk
And
Thread was really bad.
the question is, how important will that Hanzo be to them? Like, it can be important, but it. If you shut down Bird Ring hard enough, then your
Yeah,
Pharah can win over the Hanzo, right? Like that could be what happens because you trust Prophet in his Hanzo to shoot down agilities or take on agilities in the air. And like, I just don't. We need to move on though and
go for it.
discuss the other semifinals between the Philadelphia Fusion and the New York Excelsior.
This one, believe it or not, this is closer.
I
This is
I, I
closer than
agree,
the other one, though.
and we have to go and discuss about stage four. I know in our last little bit about the end of stage four, we had some discussion about
Yeah.
sandbagging and NXL, and I I I don't think I framed it well, but I don't think NYXL sandbagged, right? Like I don't. I think they just rested their players and they were not
hmm
well practiced, right? And now they've got more practice. Do I think they're going to be that much better of a team in this meta? And I still go back to say, like, despite the numbers on the Widowmaker of Sabi Albi, I don't trust his Widowmaker to make the key and clutch plays as I have seen other Widowmakers do, where they really pop off and get a ton. I think he's consistently putting up good numbers, but that doesn't mean they're impactful numbers. And that's a sense, and that sucks because I don't have the data to try and be like, here are the number of critical headshots he gets at the
Yeah.
start of fights that then go on to win because of that pick, right?
I
And that's
mean,
a hugely different number and very specific to get. And if you're an analyst, which NYXL should have, like
they
they
do.
have Wizard Young there with his
They
with his
have a they
minions.
I've seen his database levels. They've got the numbers. They have
I'm
they
jealous.
have
I wish I had access to it. It sounds great.
I mean, speaking of numbers, by the way, it was Arrow who I hate to go off. I linked it and I said, yeah, no numbers, names, or strikes again. Where Arrow says the data is there and Blizzard gives you access to it, but you have to put together your own interface to access it. And I'm
I'm
like,
not surprised about
really,
that.
Lepalose? I want you to listen to me, okay? Everybody, listen to me. Blizzard, I am Hastro. I have just sold a portion of my business, right? So I can get the capital to pay you $20 million. I'm not gonna make my own interface. You give me the damn numbers, okay?
No,
It's
listen.
$20 million, Lepelos. You
It,
can give me the damn numbers. Give
I
me
mean,
them.
I don't know. No, you can't give everyone every damn numbers, like because
Lepelos, are you kidding me?
no,
Then
I'm
what
not.
am I
Like
paying 20 million for?
it depends. It depends on what like we have no idea what numbers, Jax, that they're giving out. But
It's just
like
raw
if
data, it's
yeah,
raw
but
data that you have
that's
to
what analysts do. This is what you need to do. You hire the best analysts for your team to get
fine,
those
Lepelos.
numbers
I'll
and
give you 19 million and I'm gonna take the last million to put together my own analyst and my own database
exactly.
and my own business intelligence system.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, some teams can't even afford a bus driver in Miami. I
I-
mean, sorry, Florida,
or a
but
translator for
or
the
a
team
translator,
that has three different languages
Shanghai.
and you don't have a translator for 3 weeks.
Yeah, or you don't know how to get rid
Uh,
of your players,
oh my goodness.
outlaws. But anyways,
Okay. We're getting off, but
getting off track. But
basically
yeah, they
I linked something in chat here. I don't know if you saw it. I meant to link it in Discord earlier, but I did. It's team asking Ark about how I said Custa was extremely confident about the Valiant against
yeah,
London. Ark not so confident. Now
and he has good
take
reason not
this.
to be confident, though,
I mean,
right?
take this
Like,
as you want, Level. This could be him, playing the mind games of saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm not too confident. I'm a little bit worried." And of course, he's supremely confident. He's just not going to publicly say that. But you look at this series right now, and you look at how the quarterfinals were played and how much of it came down to the Widow and the Hanzo. And right now, if you like right this moment, if I'm looking at Widowmakers, right, I take Carpe over the two Widows that New York will play. They're gonna play Sabobi, as you mentioned. They're gonna maybe play the big boss man Pine. If those two are struggling and they feel the need to switch, then of course they'll throw Libero in as the third Hanzo and have someone else take over. Sorry, as the Widow and have someone else take over the Hanzo slash flex duties. But when it comes to just straight up Widow play, do you feel comfortable with saying Carpe is the better of all the Widows that we might see in this series, or you think New York has the advantage there?
Carpe, if he's playing well, which I suspect he will be, because it's almost rare to see. Like he's had a couple of downtimes before, but I think he'll play well. Yeah, absolutely, best widow out of the three main widows here that we're going to
Okay.
see. The Hanzo question is an interesting one because Libero, really good Hanzo formerly. Current
Lepalose,
meta, I'm sure he
Libero,
will.
the OG Hanzo.
Yeah,
But I take you, man. Listen, on
EQO
Wednesday,
though,
EQO's Hanzo was it,
it's good.
it
That
was
that
good.
matchup is like if you're looking for like a head to head, I really like that
Yeah.
matchup today more or like that one going into the series. I think is the most interesting one.
And
See
then and then you
see
want
EQO
consistency.
and yeah.
Yeah. Well, because
That
the second series is when EQO had that drop off and mistakes was like, okay, EQO is gonna struggle. I'm gonna step up and play Hanzo for my team. And it's a lot of pressure to put on EQO, but I okay, hold on. Let me just slow down because I was about to throw out a pick, but then I kind of feel the need to do that position by position check again because now you're looking at Sato versus Mono, and of course, if you bring up Mono, I have to ask the question. I have to ask the question: under or over two maps in each of these series for Janice Leplos?
the, under two because
Under two,
you're
Leplos. Then
talking
take this
potential 3 and
over or
O's.
under one map for Janice.
I think it's probably about one map. It probably depend. It probably depends. I'd have to go through again and see what
Yeah.
maps he played on a lot of, but I have trouble picking that off the top because now we're seeing a mixture of maps and modes that he did play in formerly at different times in the
Yeah.
game here. So I do suspect he will come in for certain maps. I just don't know which off the top of my head.
I
One
think,
per series
I mean,
probably.
considering that like Mano is considered, I think Mano's considered the more passive of the two.
Yeah, so he's
If
likely
that's
your.
the case, then you're like, I take you back to why quote unquote Fisher wasn't playing is because his play style didn't fit the meta, and how much you're punished when you play an aggressive tank, and you're saying, okay, we'll see a lot of Mano here, and I Sato was good. Sato was fine. Like I'll take Mano over
I'd
Sato.
take
That's just
Mano. I'd probably take
that's
Janus over Sato to be honest
And
too.
so
And then
then you're looking at flex tanks, right? And now you've got Meko, who was a really good flex up against Hotba and Poco, and
I'm
I'm
still with
kind of
NYXL.
I'm kind of feeling Meko again, right? So
Yep.
now I've given the tank battle to New York Excel, but with the tank, in order for tanks to live, you go take a look at the supports, and he's the MVP. So you automatically have to give Zen and Joan, But then again, though, right? Wait a minute, left.
Neptuno.
Here's the thing, though. Before we get to mercies, I was looking at the Zens, and while Zen was played on a number of maps and a number of times, we were seeing these solo supports, right? So if they run with the solo support and it's gonna be Arc on one side and a Tuno on the other, so then you're running Jonak on the flex. So he's going to be playing Roadhog. He might be playing a little Bastion. He might, you don't know what. So basically, what I'm asking is, are you giving Jonak the head-to-head advantage here over Boombox?
Yeah, Boombox still like he did well
He did okay.
flexing when he
Yeah,
did, but they
he did
also
okay.
subbed him out, and I'll just point that out that they
Right.
completely subbed him out in some situations. Volskaya
Okay.
comes to mind,
Well, look, let's just have
and
a
that's telling.
quick 10-second conversation. At any point, does New York Excel sub Jonak out?
No, no, I don't think
Okay.
they're going to sub him out.
Okay.
I'd be very surprised if they sub him out completely. Like I think,
So then,
I
so
like it's
basically,
not going
okay.
to
So
freak me
then,
out if they do go to like a 3 DPS at one point with one support for one map that they try and like throw a wrench into the plans of fusion by doing that with like the 3 DPS. Like, can you imagine Pine being out there with Sabi LB and
yeah.
Libero? Like they might do that, but
So then
seems
we're
unlikely.
left with, if we're giving the Zen slash second support to New York, let's go main support. And we've got Neptuno and Arc or Neptuno and Animo. And when it comes to Mercy, I don't where I forget the exact numbers. I think it was Arc and Animo. When it came to deaths per 10 minutes, they had the fewest out of everybody in
I mean,
Overwatch League.
you're on a winning team. Of course, you're gonna have fewer. Like your team. You got Jonak there killing anyone that comes for you. Of course, it's going to be lower. But
So
I mean, they have
okay.
shown like that's a bit of a joke because they are actually quite good at staying alive,
Right.
and that's part of
So
why they win.
what I'm asking you then is, are you giving the main support advantage to New York over Philadelphia?
Yeah, I give both tanks and support over
Well, you're giving them tank. Okay, for the
tanks
record, I
and
agree with
support
you.
over
I agree with
Philadelphia
you.
Fusion. That's
So
where I think
then,
the DPS can be fairly close to
okay,
Fusion.
so
So
then, so here we are. We've got tanks and support going to New York. We're giving Widow, specifically Widow, to Philadelphia.
and likely Hanzo as well,
And
and likely
I can't. I don't know if I haven't
that
seen.
the
Libero is
Farah.
so good in
Okay, that
Hanzo
as we said,
Leplos.
that's the most interesting position I think, right? Where it's like EKO could have a great day and
Yeah.
or if we've seen EKO have horrible days and just not show up,
His
and that's
second game, like the second
mm,
game series that they
and
played
that's
that
why
they
I have to give it
lost.
to Libero overall though. But anyways,
Okay, so Leplos, you have now given 5 out of the 6 positions
yeah.
to New York
But
Excel. So here,
Widowmaker is that
since you say
strong.
I pick first all the time, you're going
I'm
to pick
picking
first then.
NYXL. I am picking
You're taking New
NYXL.
York over Philly.
I
Is
am.
it two straight or is it 2-1?
Uh, I think it's going to be 2-1. That's a hard pick to do, but I think it'll be 2-1. I think Philly has it in them to force the distance here, but I think NYXL is going to come back in the third game and do
I
just
really
fine.
like this Philadelphia team.
I don't blame
It's
you. This is going to
so
be a close one too.
hard. It's so hard to pick against New York Leplos. It's so hard. I am extremely tempted to put the Black Star tag on the Fusion here, man. I am so tempted
In
because
the playoffs too, folks.
the
Wow.
potential is it's a low percentage though. It's like 10 to 15% chance that they can beat New York.
Yeah.
And oh, I'm sure you all hear that car that's going down my street right now. But Lip, talk me out of picking Philly. Talk me out of picking Philly, dude.
I mean, you listed okay, so like tank lineup. Okay, multiple angles. Tank lineup you said was already stronger for NYXL. I go back to when Fleto used to be popping off on the Widowmaker until the
Yeah.
NYXL with no Widowmaker
That
managed to shut him
anti-widow
down.
strat on Ilios that they ran was so good
And
that
have you
day.
seen them have doing that again purposely? I haven't seen them
Ugh.
break that strat out again. But I will guarantee you they did that purposely and they can break that out again if they have to. Not that strat, but like that kind of an idea, right? Like they know how to break down a Widowmaker if they need to. And I'm not saying it's going to be perfect every single time, just that it's
All
definitely
right.
possible
All
that
right, the
they can.
decision is made. I'm gonna take New York. I will say this though. After the first series on Wednesday, if I change my mind, I will tweet about it. Yes, I'm actually going to tweet. If I change my mind, I'm gonna take that mulligan. I'm putting it out there. Something about Philly I like. I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like if Philly plays to their absolute potential uploads, like if everyone brings it, they have the potential to beat New York. I seriously, oh my goodness, this person is going now back. I think they're purposely trying to set off every car alarm on my street right now.
That's brutal.
But
But
what
so
time
is
is
so is the difficulty in
New York?
choosing between these two teams, Jax.
Yeah, people believe it. This is close. This is Ark may not have been, joking when he said he wasn't confident, but I can understand why he's not confident. Especially depending on what their scrims look like. But I'm taking New York left. I'm taking New York 2-1 New York, just like you did. I hate that we're so, similar because it's
We're gonna
boring.
have to get
But
some outsiders. Apparently, we don't know how to keep it real enough for everyone. Or sorry, we do know how to keep it real, Jax, because I believe in our own predictions here, but we don't have the fake drama. That's not what we do on this show.
I
We
mean,
only
the
talk about
only
the real
drama
stuff,
we
like
have is
Fisher
that our
leaving.
clock guy has shown up over an hour after we've started with
Hour and a
SSD
half,
issues.
hour and a half,
My
basically.
goodness, man.
We are pretty much done though, Jack. So I think we need to just sign off here and call it a night, guys. If
I will
you,
say, yes, sorry.
oh
I
no, go
just
right
want to
it, go
say
right it.
the for those who only listen to the podcast, via maybe iTunes, or you go by the website merc.gg, I do ask everyone, stop by twitch.tv/Lepalos, watch our pregame, listen to our pre-show. Lepalos and I talked a little bit more about the affecting. I'm only putting it out there because I think mental health is important. I myself have lately been struggling with my own, bouts with depression. So just, if you're struggling, just find help wherever you can. But listen to that, and I think we're gonna have a somewhat lengthy, not lengthy, but because I have to
Well, there's
rant
so much
about the
to talk. We
Gladiators
can talk
levels.
about Fisher for days,
I have
guys,
to rant
in
about the
our post
Gladiators.
game.
So yes, post show people,
Post
please.
show rant about Fisher
Twitch.tv
this
slash
week.
Lepalos. Because since he
Limited
doesn't
time
even upload
offer.
it to YouTube, he doesn't even upload it to YouTube.
Nope.
He doesn't
This
upload it anywhere. Pre and post show are only on twitch.tv
only
slash
for a
Lepalos.
couple weeks too, before the
Yeah.
broadcast ends. So make sure you guys check that out. We're at OW Rundown on Twitter. I am at Leplos. He's at Jax_Blake. He already told you where to find us on Twitch TV/Leplos, YouTube/Leplos, I believe, on there. And
Google YouTube Lepalos, you'll find it. Stop by
yeah,
the Discord, people. There's
yeah.
plenty to talk. Like, there's so much to talk about on the
Always
Discord.
talking there. Not only Overwatch, of course, but we have like our Arma and Planet Side
Arma,
2
Planet
and
gaming.
all
In
these
general, like
stuff that means
Fortnite.
we'll never be sponsored by Blizzard for Jax.
I mean, Lepos, we mentioned Fortnite and how good their numbers were. Although we were honest, right? The Fortnite servers were terrible.
Well, who knows, Jax? Maybe we need to start in Riot We Trust series, and when we move on to our new podcast talking about Fortnite, right? Or sorry, Epic.
Fortnite.
My apologies. We're not going backwards. We're going
I'm not
forwards in
going to
times.
League of Legends. No, not gonna happen.
Not going to happen. What is happening, guys? We're playing out with the music.